Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, we're continuing with chapter 6 of Sasquatch Escapes, Seahorse Face. While Grandpa Abe rattled around in the kitchen, Ben fed a piece of donut to Snooze, the hamster. Then he opened the bedroom window. There was no screen, so he stuck his head right out. It was late morning and the sun seemed to be between his grandfather's house and the house next door. A little path was worn into the side yard between the houses. "Today is Friday," Grandpa Abe called. "Birthday day at the senior center." Ben leaned on the windowsill. Going to the senior center didn't sound like much fun. He could tell his grandfather that maybe he had a stomach ache. Or maybe he'd make up a better story, that he had a medical condition that made him allergic to other people's birthday cakes. Then again, eating frosting might be better than hanging around the house, wondering what his friends back home were doing. Wondering if his parents were okay. Wondering about that giant bird. Meow. A large black cat turned into the side yard and pranced up the path. His tail stuck straight up, and something swung from his mouth. The cat stopped beneath the window and stared up at Ben, his yellow eyes widening with surprise. He wiggled his bottom. "Oh no," said Ben, "you're not coming in here." But before he could close the window, the cat leaped onto the sill and then jumped onto his bed. Ben threw himself at the dresser, standing between the cat and the hamster. "Don't you even think about it," he warned. "Go on, shoo." And Ben waved his hands toward the open bedroom door. "Go on, shoo." But the cat didn't shoo. The pitiful victim dangled from his smiling mouth. Snooze, the hamster, stopped eating the donut and scurried into his nest. The rustling sound caught the cat's attention. Grandpa, can you please call your cat?" "Here, Barnaby, Barnaby, Barney, come get some yum-yums." And the sound of a can opener was apparently more interesting than the hamster's rustling. And with a leap, Barnaby soared through the air like a trapeze artist and landed gracefully in the doorway, and then pranced into the kitchen. With a sigh of relief, Ben shut the door. "And stay out," he grumbled. He was about to tell Snooze that he wouldn't let that bad kitty into the bedroom when something squeaked. Ben leaned over his bed, and there in the middle of the quilt lay Barnaby's victim. Only it wasn't dead. It wiggled and squeaked again. And then it shot a flame right at Ben's face. "Whoa!" Ben cried, ducking as the flame whooshed over his head. As suddenly as the flame had appeared, it disappeared. Ben felt his face and his hair and made sure that nothing was on fire. Then a second flame shot upward, but this time it reached only a few feet from the bed. The flame disappeared and the creature squeaked again. A third time the flame emerged, but it was weak, like a sparkler on the 4th of July. It fizzled and popped, and extinguished with a hissing sound. The little creature coughed. What just happened? How could... Ben's legs started to tremble. After a minute or two had passed and no more flames appeared, Ben knelt beside the bed. He wasn't about to touch it, whatever it was. The creature's body had wings that were black, but one of the wings was torn. Was it a bat? Ben had seen photos of bats, so he knew that they had all sorts of weird faces. Some looked like foxes, some looked like mice. There were dog-faced bats and monkey-faced bats, but this one, it had a long snout, kind of like a seahorse. He leaned closer and discovered the problem with this bat theory of his. Bats were mammals and covered with fur. This thing was covered with glossy scales. Of course, bats don't spout fire. As far as Ben knew, no animals he knew of spouted fire. No real animals. probably don't want me to read anymore. Do you want me to read? You do? A little more? Okay. Ben, your mother's on the phone, said Grandpa Abe. Be a good boy and come talk to your mother. Okay. Ben didn't want to leave the creature, which coughed again and looked up at him with half-closed eyes. I'll be right back, he whispered. He closed the bedroom window so that the killer cat couldn't sneak back in, and he made sure to close the bedroom door, too. He didn't mention the bat to his grandfather, who was putting away the groceries. You can't keep a fire-breathing bat, he would surely say. It's too dangerous. It'll burn your ears off. So, no need to tell him just yet. A fire-breathing bat was a pretty cool thing to find, and Ben wanted to spend a little more time with it before he turned it over to an adult. Hello? Ben said as he picked up the phone. The phone was one of those old-fashioned phones that was still attached to the wall. Hello, Benjamin, his mother chirped. I just wanted to see how things were going. Is your grandfather feeding you? Yes. Good. Be a good boy and help him carry things. And be sure to help him with the chores around the house. He's getting older, you know. And be sure to keep your room clean, and be sure to brush your teeth, and be sure to... Oh, just have fun. I want you to have lots and lots of fun. I will, Ben said as he gazed at his bedroom door. You're still not mad that we sent you there, are you? Silence filled the line. If asked that question 5 minutes ago, Ben would have told his mother that yes, he was really mad that she had sent him to a boring town in the middle of nowhere with a grandfather he barely knew. But with a fire-breathing bat laying on his bed, well, that kind of changed everything. Sorry. I'm not mad, Ben said. Barnaby the cat pawed at the bedroom door, and then he pressed his barrel-shaped body against the wood with a low growl vibrating as he pushed, trying to get in. I gotta go, Mom. Don't worry too much. Everything's fine. Okay, sweetie. Your father and I just wanted to let you know that we love you. I love you too. Bye. And Ben hung up. Shoo, he said to the cat again. The cat flicked its tail and then moseyed over to the water bowl. Ben cracked open the door and peered into the bedroom. The little creature lay in the exact same spot, licking its injured wing. Grandpa Abe, are there any veterinarians in Buttonville? Well, apparently we have a worm doctor, Grandpa Abe said as he sat a bag of potato chips in the cupboard. This we need, a worm doctor. Yeah, but are there any other doctors, you know, that like a veterinarian? He tried to keep his voice from trembling with excitement. Just in case my hamster gets sick or something like that. Not for any other reason. Grandpa Abe shook his head. We should be so lucky to have a veterinarian in Buttonville. The nearest one is a 4-hour drive. Took Barnaby there a few months back when he got a bellyache from eating too many mice. That cat loves to eat mice. Barnaby wound between Ben's ankles, rubbing at his cheeks with Ben's jeans. I'm going to go to my room and unfinish packing, Ben told his grandfather. He didn't want to seem rude, so he added, and I'm going to keep the door closed so Barnaby doesn't get in and eat my hamster. Okie dokie, Grandpa Abe said. He leaned across the counter and turned on the radio. Music from the days gone by filled the kitchen. Grandpa Abe tapped his foot and hummed along to the swinging rhythm. With the bedroom door shut tight, Ben knelt beside the bed. The creature's eyes were closed. Its little chest rose and fell in quick breaths. A wheezy sound came out of its snout. Ben frowned. The nearest veterinarian was 4 hours away. Grandpa Abe would have to drive there, and that would mean he would have to tell him about the fire-breathing bat. The little creature suddenly rolled over. Was that a tail? Ben reached out cautiously, smoothed the quilt so he could get a better look. It was a tail. A long, barbed tail. He sat back on his heels. A huge grin spread across his face. His whole body tingled. Bats didn't have barbed tails. Bats didn't have scales. Bats didn't breathe fire. As impossible as it seemed, Ben knew exactly what laid on his bed. Chapter 7, Pearl's Promise. "I'm going to take a nap," Grandpa Abe announced as he patted his belly. He grabbed his cane and shuffled across the crumb-coated kitchen floor. Ben had eaten a bologna sandwich and a pickle for lunch, and he didn't remember chewing or tasting at all. He had been thinking about the baby dragon that was laying on his bed. How long could it survive without help? The red-haired man with the dragon's milk recipe said he worked at the old button factory. A person with dragon's milk recipe might be a person who knows a thing or two about dragons. "Grandpa?" "Uh-huh." Grandpa Abe settled into the patched couch. He stretched out his long, skinny legs and rested his head on a pillow. "Can I go for a walk?" "Can you go for a walk? Of course you can go for a walk." "Thanks." Back home, Ben wasn't allowed to go on walks alone. Too much traffic, too much strangers. Plus, everything was so spread out in Los Angeles, it would take an hour just to get to the mall. But if Ben stood on Main Street in Buttonville, he could see from one end of town to the other. There's no way he could get lost. As Ben added his lunch plate to the pile in the sink, he remembered that he promised his mother to help with the chores. "I'll wash the dishes when I get back," he said. "Okie dokie." Grandpa Abe closed his eyes. "I'll be heading to the senior center later. There's an extra key to the house under the welcome mat, just in case I'm not here when you get back." And he rolled onto his side. "Okay." Ben found a cookie tin on the kitchen counter. He took out the crumbs and set a folded sheet of paper towel inside. After grabbing a rusty spatula, he hurried off to his room. The creature lay on the quilt, its eyes still closed. Ben slid the spatula under the creature and gently lifted it, set it on the bed of paper towels. And for a moment, he worried about the flammability of the paper, but no sparks shot out of the creature's snout. "Don't be scared," he whispered, and he put the lid on the tin and carried it into the living room. Snores streamed out of Grandpa Abe's half-opened mouth. Barnaby perched on Grandpa's chest, leisurely cleaning his front paws. He seemed to have forgotten about the wounded creature that he abandoned on Ben's bed. He paid no attention as Ben tiptoed past him out the front door. Ben glanced back just to make sure the door was shut tight. Gripping the cookie tin, Ben sought off down the sidewalk. Town Hall loomed in the distance, guiding the way back to Main Street. In just a few minutes, Ben stood in front of the dollar store. He barely knew this Pearl Petal, but he needed her help. Even though Grandpa Abe had called Pearl a troublemaker, Ben felt he could trust her. After all, they had both seen the giant bird, and she had mouthed the word. She told him that the giant bird lived on the roof of the old button factory, and she said she was going to go investigate. If she took him to the factory, maybe they would find the red-haired man who worked there. Ben hoped he hadn't left already. The dollar store's front window was stacked with all sorts of stuff you could buy for $1. Baskets, beach balls, bags of tortilla chips, brooms. Voices drifted from the open window above the store. Glasses and silverware were clinking. "Hello!" Ben called, and a blonde-haired girl popped her head out the window. "Hey, it's you," Pearl said, looking down at him. "What are you carrying?" Ben put the cookie tin behind his back. "Are you still going to the old button factory? To find that bird?" "Yeah, as soon as I finish lunch," she smiled. "Do you want to go with me?" "Yes, because..." Ben tapped his feet. Ben looked around. The sidewalk was completely empty. The nearest pair of ears belonged to a woman who was walking her dog across the street. "I found something." Pearl disappeared, and a few moments later, the open sign rattled and she burst out the front door. "What did you find?" Her eyes as wide with expectations. Her checkered napkin was still tucked into her t-shirt. Ben narrowed his eyes. "You have to promise not to tell anyone." Yeah, okay, I promise, she said, holding her hand up as if taking an oath. Because if you tell your mom or dad, they might take it away. I said, I promise. I always keep my promises. Ben lowered his voice. Then he slowly slid the tin from behind his back. Remember how you said that bird looked like a dragon? Pearl nodded, her eyes so big they looked like they might pop right off of her face. Did you find dragon poop? No, something even better. Very carefully, as to not startle the creature, Ben pulled off the lid. Is that a toy? Pearl asked as she leaned in closer. Then she inhaled so long and hard that if any bugs had been flying anywhere around her, they surely would have been sucked into her mouth and right between the big gap in her teeth. Whoa, it's breathing! She reached out to touch the creature, but Ben pulled the tin away. Be careful, it shoots fire, he explained. Grandpa's cat caught it, and its wing is torn. Ben, do you know what you have found? Pearl's eyes sparkled as if they had been dipped in glitter. Do you? Ben swallowed hard. When he spoke, his voice was a bit shaky. I think it's a baby dragon. It sure is, Pearl smiled. Do you think it belongs to the big dragon? Maybe. Then we have to get it back to its mother. We have to go to the button factory. Ben didn't want to return the baby to its mother. He wanted to keep it, but he didn't know how to take care of it. I've lived here all my life, and suddenly we have dragons in Buttonville. This is amazing. Pearl looked over her shoulder. Better put the lid back on so no one else sees it. Ben did, and just in time, because a woman with hair as yellow as Pearl's stuck her head out the upstairs window. Pearl, what are you doing? Hi, Mom. I'm just talking to my new friend, Ben. Mrs. Petal smiled. She had a big gap between her front teeth, too. Hello, Ben. You must be Abe's grandson. We've heard a lot about you. Hello, Ben said. I bet it's exciting to live in Los Angeles. This town must seem very boring to you. Well, Mom, can I go for a walk with Ben? Pearl Petal's mom pursed her lips and thought for a moment. I'd guess so, but you do still have chores, so be back before we close. Okay, Pearl answered. She yanked the napkin out of her collar and tossed it into the dollar store. Then she grabbed Ben's arm and pulled him down the sidewalk. And don't get in trouble, Mrs. Petal called. Please don't get in trouble. Ugh, I won't, Pearl called back. And then she grumbled. Ugh, everyone thinks I'm always going to get into trouble. The scent of French fries and grilled cheeseburgers drifted out of the door of the Buttonville diner as the kids passed by. Maybe the baby dragon fell out of the big dragon's nest, Pearl said as they hurried down Main Street. Then your grandpa's cat found it. Maybe, Ben said, though the baby seemed very small to have come from the humongous creature that had flown between the clouds. Pearl led the way, turning onto Fir Street. Her shiny red basketball shorts swished with her hurried steps. They cut through the church parking lot and darted around the back of an abandoned gas station. Pearl's stride was longer than Ben's steps, so he had to jog to keep up with her. If the nest is on the button factory roof, like I think it is, well then we're going to have to climb up so that we can give the baby back, Pearl said as they crossed over to Maple Street. Ben stopped walking. There were many things he dreamed about doing. Getting past level 36 in Galaxy Games was one of those things. Learning how to ride a skateboard was another one of those things. But facing a giant, enormous mother dragon was not one of those things. The wall of flames the mother dragon could shoot from her snout would be 1,000,000 times bigger than the one that had come out of her baby. Pearl, I don't think we should climb the roof. I have a better idea. A better idea? I'm listening. He told her about the red-haired man who worked in the button factory. That's impossible, she said, pushing blonde wisps from her face. No one works at the button factory. It closed years ago. Pearl, the man had a recipe in his pocket for artificial dragon's mouth, and he brought stuff to make it. Ben expected Pearl to laugh. He expected her to say something playful and to shove him away like, no way, that's crazy. But she didn't. She twirled a lock of hair, and her eyes glazed over as she went into a deep thinking place. Pearl? Pearl, did you hear what I said? Dragon's milk, she mumbled. Then he must know about the big dragon. She suddenly spun around. Woohoo! She cried. A squirrel that had been sitting on the garbage can skittered away. Woohoo! Pearl said again. This is amazing. Don't you think this is amazing? This is amazing. Ben broke into a huge grin. Yes, it's amazing. But the mood was broken by a sickly sound, something between a cough and a squeak that came from inside the tin. Ben carefully opened the lid, and he and Pearl peered inside. A little green stain had spread across the paper towels. Do you think that green stuff's blood? Pearl asked. Maybe, Ben said. Ugh, that silly cat must have grabbed the dragon with one of its sharp teeth. Come on, we better hurry. Chapter 8. The Old Button Factory. But you're going to have to wait for tomorrow for that one. Have fun!